I think many will agree that 2020 is quite possibly one of the craziest years we have experienced in recent memories. Now, I understand that the media has essentially been covering mostly political news, including myself at times to the disliking of some viewers, which I can understand. There are other stories that are just as incredible as what's happening in the surface of the political arena. And I'm talking about something that breaks through the abyss of the philosophical questions that essentially asks us, are we alone? What does it mean to be human? And why is it that credible pilot fighters with extensive aviation knowledge and experience are telling us that there are crafts that almost definitely are not flown by humans? I'm talking about individuals like David Fravor and the Tic-Tac UFO. Though the media has, for the most part, ignored this story, there have been a few podcasters like Joe Rogan and even intellectual individuals like Lex Friedman who have tackled the subject. And though there are many questions to be still answered about what are these crafts, there does seem to be one consensus among all the podcasters that have interviewed pilots like David Fravor. And that consensus is that whatever is driving these crafts is almost certainly not human. So today what I want to do is showcase some images. Now, I have actually showcased these images before, but only yesterday did I realize how much was in these images, and not just that, but how closely it matches some things like the Tic-Tac UFO, which only came after we had gotten these images from somebody who claimed to be an alien abduction victim. So if you want to know what I'm talking about exactly, please stay tuned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so this is pretty amazing. These are images from somebody who claimed to be an alien abduction victim. I had reviewed these images before, but only yesterday did I notice some startling details that I think any audience who's curious about UFOs and extraterrestrial aliens or interdimensional creatures, whatever you want to call it, well, I think you'd be very interested in these findings that I'm about to show you. So to start off, what I want to do is actually showcase the email from the individual to kind of give you a sense of how this information was relayed to me. So in a follow-up of me asking him for some descriptions about the images that he was providing me, this is what he wrote back. If that's the pic looking up at the moon, I just had a feeling to go outside and look up. It was taken looking straight up. I think you can see the porch, Eve. I remember being a little scared cause lights were moving around, so I took the pic and went back inside. Honestly forgot about it. There's no cool story to tell. Watching TV, getting a feeling, go outside and take a pic. That's it. Here's 3 more. 2 pics I can't explain what I'm looking at and don't remember taking. 1 of a normal sun pic for reference. All of them are original pics with the original timestamps and the info. I have a Galaxy Note 9. I usually don't remember anything or only remember an urge. No BS. It is what it is. It's rare that I see something and can actually pull off a picture. I wish I had a cool dramatic story, but I don't. So what he means by it's rare that I see something, he has actually relayed the information, given that he had claimed to have been abducted by aliens, that he oftentimes doesn't remember some of these experiences, but upon the feeling that he thinks he's being watched or that there's a UFO nearby, he will often kind of sneak a cell phone picture. And he says he almost has to sneak it because they're very clever about knowing when he's taking pictures. And I know this sounds a little crazy, but wait till I show you what he's captured in these images. So I went ahead and I downloaded these 3 images, and I'm going to show you what I have over here. So basically, if you were to zoom out, you see that it just essentially looks like a light. Oh, this is just the moon. Well, I'll show you why that's not exactly the case. Here's a second picture. And here is a third. So in fact, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. So let's go ahead and start with these 2 images. So what I ended up doing this time around is I decided to make a channel filter, and I actually created an action for this that would essentially try to kind of take down some of the wavelengths and boost up other ones to see if there's anything that can be noticed behind this light. And let me show you what happens when we play this action. Now, what I found so interesting about this, and something that I honestly didn't expect, is this kind of what looked to be an almost perfectly symmetrical formation. Now, if you can see, the symmetry goes from here to here. So this would be like the front and the back, or vice versa. And you can see that there is symmetry, not just with this edge, but also on the sides, and the fact that this lines up perfectly to this axis. And of course, you kind of get this interesting wave that's happening around what could be a craft. We're not 100% certain yet. So what I ended up doing is I went to the next image, and given the fact that I had already created this action, I went ahead and decided to put the same action, and let's see what we get here. Once again, something that looks unbelievably symmetrical. And I also found it interesting that when you look over here, look at this edge right here. It's like a perfectly straight edge. You can see all the pixels, how perfectly straight it is. And, you know, this is something that I didn't quite expect to see if this was a light, for example. If this was the moon, for example, I wouldn't expect to see a perfectly linear edge. Now, is this definitive? Not exactly, but we got more to show you. So when I went to this third image, this was really interesting because we kind of have the same type of light configuration right down here. But check out what happens when we put that same filter on. Whoa. Now we got something that's starting to look a little bit more like that typical saucer shape that we're used to seeing. And once again, you kind of have this almost energy field like extrusion happening around the craft. And you might be like, oh, okay, this is no big deal. This is somebody photoshopping or pasting. Well, I'm going to show you why that's not the case. But before we do that, I want to show you one last image that I think will really get your attention. Now, check out this one. This is by the same individual. And wow. I mean, this is already kind of looking very strange and very, how do you say, saucer shaped. But what I ended up doing is I decided to crop the image. I reduced the noise just a little bit. I made a copy of it so I can overlay the color layer with what is going to be a channel mixer layer. So here's the channel mixer that I created, and you can kind of see this ball of light around it, as well as its own kind of energy kind of field or light field, however you want to construe this. And let me just show you what happens when we get to the very end. That's no joke, ladies and gentlemen. This is unbelievable. And I didn't do anything. I didn't draw any of this. This is literally just me increasing the size. Let me go back in history so I can show you real quick. So what I did here is I took a difference layer. You can kind of see the object, and I just said, okay, what would happen if we took the original image and took the difference of it? After that, I ended up just going to image size. Let's do 3000 with a resolution of 150. And this is kind of like Photoshop's artificial intelligence program that does pixel prediction when it increases in size. It's called Preserve Detail 2.0. So here it is. And like I said, none of this is drawn in. This is just layers that were essentially stacked against each other. Now, what I found so amazing about this image, and I never noticed this before because this image came way before the Tic-Tac UFO was released to the public by New York Times and all the national papers. Well, let me show you here. It's essentially almost identical in shape. And not just that, but as you can see, this has its own kind of energy field. I don't know how you want to call this, as does the Tic-Tac UFO. And mind you, I got this image way before the Tic-Tac UFO had ever come out to the public. So that's pretty incredible. When you see the actual shape, when you see this kind of rounded dome looking thing, these lines, I did not draw this. This came out from naturally putting the layers on top of each other. And you might be thinking, oh, well, that dude could have just photoshopped that in, you know, whatever, it's not a big deal. Okay, well, let me show you this. I decided to take the image and put it in, yes, photo forensics program. And if we were to look, for example, we got the light over here, and you might be like, oh, that could be the moon or whatever. Well, look what happens when we put the luminance gradient. So what I found so interesting is when you take a look at the luminance gradient, the actual light source that was up here, let me show you again, that is essentially blowing out the image, that light source, there's no shape to it. There's nothing. It's just essentially blank blown out pixels, as you can see. But when you look down here, well, it's a different story. Look at this. It actually has a kind of a structure. It has something to this image. And not does it just have almost no error whatsoever. When you actually look at the pixelation, it looks like something that could be in the image, just like you can see the pixels over here, there's red pixels around the light source. It kind of blends in with the image and with a very similar pixel density as you see up here. But what I found most interesting about this was the metadata. Check this out. The make Samsung, which goes hand in hand with his story. He said that he took this with a Samsung phone. Model SMN960U. Now check this out. The software. N960USQ. Now if you go ahead and take that and plug it into Google, well, that's the actual Android platform that the phone is based on. So if he were to use Photoshop or any kind of image program to essentially layer this into his image, the software wouldn't be N960US. It would be Photoshop or whatever program you could use to essentially layer an image over another one. So the metadata not only shows that this image came straight off his phone, just as he explained, but it also came off a Samsung, which also is what he explained. Going further, I also analyzed the very interesting image that looks kind of like the Tic-Tac UFO when you kind of use some channel mixers and kind of blow it up. Once again, I didn't notice any kind of clone detection. I didn't notice anything strange when I typed the error analysis. Look, it looks very similar to the actual light source. And once again, when you go to the metadata, Samsung, the same exact software. So just by looking at the metadata, we know that whatever took this image was not only the exact same phone, but that there was no other software that was used to capture this image. And I just want to remind you that we got this image before the Tic-Tac UFO, so the fact that this image looks almost identical to the Tic-Tac UFO with its own little energy field, well, that's a form of independent confirmation in a way, because I didn't know what these things were supposed to look like, but it just happens to look like the exact same craft that apparently David Fravor ended up reporting to many podcasts and to the rest of the world. So ladies and gentlemen, make it out as you will. I think this is incredible evidence, at least when it comes to pictures. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you have any images of UFOs, any videos of UFOs that you would like to share, I can guarantee you all confidentiality. I will never use your footage in any video without your permission. And I would love to hear your story. If there's something that you've experienced that you would like to share, or even not share. If it's something you just want to talk about, you can always reach me at eafiles.contact@gmail.com. Thank you so much for following us. If you have not subscribed, we are kind of on the edge of losing subscribers, so there's always that if you want to help out this channel. This is Felipe speaking, signing out.